Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Welcome to the Cope Life Podcast. I'm Dr. Charleston Gaines, and I'm so excited this morning to introduce you to a good friend of mine and colleague, Miss Tanya Jones, the CEO of Interactive Advocacy. And the reason I'm so excited is because she and I are really aligned in our thoughts, our mission, and just our passion for helping people. But I got to tell you, she does it in a way that's different than how I do it. Interactive Advocacy is a company that she built on her dream, her vision, her passion. And I'm not going to get into the details. She's going to do that later. I mean, I might mess up the details a little bit, but before I go any further, I'm just going to stop right there and let's get us started. Tanya, just jump us off. Tell us about you and just what's going on.
Thank you so much, Dr. G. And I just want to say I appreciate you inviting me this morning onto your podcast. I really do appreciate it. And good morning to everyone who's joining us. I'm so excited to be here. As Dr. Gaines said, my name is Tanya Jones. I am the CEO and founder of Interactive Advocacy, and we are a violence prevention training organization. And as a bunch of creatives, we use theatrics as our forum of approach. I've been doing this type of work as it relates to social injustice prevention and awareness for the better part of 25 years in so many different capacities. So this is not something that's new to me. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time.
So you say you've been doing it for a long time, but everyone has a day one. And so my question for you is, I just like to get right to the meat of it. What led you to getting to day one? What really got you started? Why are you even doing this?
That is a good question. And oh my gosh, and that's so much to unpack, right? Because like I said, I've been doing this work both inside and outside of the military. I am a United States Army veteran, and I've had the privilege of working in with social justice programs, everything from sexual assault, sexual harassment to equal opportunity, equal employment opportunity. So many different types of social injustice and awareness, right? But my personal journey kind of started long before that with my own experiences with trauma. And that ultimately is what led me to starting this. But before I go all the way back there, just real simple, just like real simple. I was working with another organization, and I was lending my energy and my voice to advocacy, but not really the way that I wanted to. And a friend of mine basically asked me, what are you waiting on? You're working so hard for someone else, and you're basically not following your dreams, your passion. And if you keep working this hard for someone else, they're going to be able to take what is genuinely your passion and do something else with it. And that they didn't see advocacy or speak to advocacy the same way that I did, in a nutshell. And so I just said, you're right. Why not start now, building a program that I really believe in, that I would have liked to see when I was working in the trenches, so to speak, with fellow advocates, and working with survivors, and not really seeing what we needed to see as far as prevention was concerned, and stopping the type of behaviors that were impacting our organizations and our communities. So literally right before COVID hit, I kind of do what I always do as a creative. I start writing things down in the middle of the night. And then I wake up in the morning and kind of look and see what I've written, and see if it makes sense. And I just took a leap of faith, and trusted that a higher power was in charge of everything that I was doing, and I went for it. And I literally said, how do I start this? And I turned inward, and I turned to my own personal story, and ultimately that became our first production, our first play.
Well, that's interesting. I love I love how you say that other people kind of push you towards it? Because I've been in that situation too, where you have these ideas, but you're not really sure. You're not really sure should you jump in, and other people are telling you you need to jump in. And so what happens sometimes, it's about trust. Why are these people telling you to jump in? Why are they telling you this? Are they lying to you? Or do they believe in you more than you believe in yourself? And then what happens is you decide, I'm going to trust me the same way they trust me. And it's very powerful to have that support. So you said that the first production was based somewhat on your story.
Yes, yes. So let me kind of go back a little bit more. As I shared, starting interactive advocacy really was the brainchild of my own personal trauma and how I coped with trauma. I am a creative, so as long as I can remember, I used to write short stories. I like writing poetry and but really a lot of writing short stories. And I would always just kind of write what looked like maybe a diary or a journal, and I would just try my best to give these short stories different endings because they mirrored my life in a way that I didn't really want to see. So I would change the ending of them to give them a brighter ending, so to speak. And when I knew that I wanted to start interactive advocacy, I first started off with our training tools that I was working on, but at the same time trying to figure out how am I going to bring my personal story to life, and that's what I did. I started to lay out, my character or me and my perpetrator and everything that kind of happened with the act of violence that took place against me. It just started to develop into something greater. And what I found is by changing the ending of the story to something less heinous or less traumatic, but still very important, hopefully a different ending could speak to those individuals that were in the audience that were basically potential perpetrators. So the performance that I'm talking about specifically is our No Words performance, and it is a story of a young lady that was sexually assaulted. And there were her, bystanders and friends and her work environment and all of these people that impacted or played a role in the outcome. And what made this situation, the way that we share it, what made it so interesting was that, like many people that have found themselves in a situation where they were sexually assaulted, they know the person that assaulted them. So this wasn't a stranger to me. This was someone that I knew. It was actually someone that I liked a little bit. So everything that happened that evening, I didn't think was going to happen, and I totally lost control. So this production, our No Words performance, is that story. And I really take a lot of pride in the way that we share our stories. Our organization is comprised of not just clinicians such as yourself and advocates, but also survivors and thriving survivors of trauma. So I think this gave both me and many of my fellow colleagues a platform and a voice to share our story in a way that we didn't even know that we needed.
I love that. I love that so much. I love the idea and really the taking action that you did, where it's not just you being creative, right? There's ways to be creative, like Marvel movies and Vincent Van Gogh. There's that level of creativity. There's artists and musicians, but yours was on a deeper level, and it had an ending already. That night ended some kind of way.
Exactly.
But what you did was you took control of the story, and you said, and it's not just that you can go back and delete facts and replace facts. What you can do is control the way the narrative plays in your mind, which then influences the way that your story impacts the way that you see yourself, the way you feel about yourself, your self-worth, and the way that you really present yourself to others as really as now today as a voice of strength, as a voice of really overcoming the pain. And I feel like when I think about what you do, I think about like the numbers, right? How many people in the military have experienced sexual assault? And so based on that data, and the numbers vary, they range, right? But from what I've seen, it's like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 of every woman, and maybe 1 out of every 6 men, something like that, right? And so what we don't do is we don't know how many people in the audience have experienced this. And so I feel like what you do is empowering to them, because if like anything, right? If I'm watching a movie and I'm able to relate to what the main character went through, then when they are victorious in the end, it gives me hope in my story. So what I'm curious about is after some of your performances, whether it's immediately after or maybe an email or something more personal afterward, have people reached out to you and told you that it was personal and how it impacted them?
Oh, I can't even put a number to how many people come to us after the performance. How many people um, graciously wait in line, and I'm so humbled after every performance, because there is always someone that are in different stages of their own journey, whether it's because it's something that impacted them personally or someone that they know personally, and they come and they share, and they just wait in line, if it's nothing more, to just hug me or just tell me thank you so much. Or some of the best ones have been, you have just given me the courage to report. And I have not told anyone.
Yes.
And because this is a crime that doesn't discriminate, it has been, men, women, young, old, like it doesn't matter. They just come with tears. And my heart is just so full always, because this was just this little brown girl in the ring, her story. And I just felt like I need this so I can heal, and so it can help me. And if it helps just one person, then I'm okay with that. And it's helping so many people. So I'm just in awe every day at the countless thank yous that we get for sharing our stories the way that we do.
That's amazing. That's amazing, and it's so surreal to be a part of other people's lives, right? Like it's not surreal to start your own business, but when the impact has exceeded your expectations on that level, and when I say on that level, what I really mean is how it feels when someone, right, and this could be in a movie, a play, Broadway, or sitting in the audience during one of your presentations, but to say, I have felt that exact same thing. And the reason I say that is because, you know, the way that I speak on the topic is loneliness is the pandemic.
Mm.
That's what it is. Loneliness is a pandemic. Loneliness drives, not just suicidal ideations, but it drives depression, anxiety, alcoholism, obesity. People want to be seen and heard. They want to feel a connection. But we can endure something that changes our perception of ourselves.
Mm.
So then we feel alone. And when you experience a trauma and you feel alone in that, like you said, the little black girl in the ring, and you feel alone, and then after this presentation, to be able to come up to you and feel a connection on this topic, not just my best friend from high school, right? We don't just cheer for the same professional athlete, but on this topic that's personal to me, I can connect with you. And I just feel Man, like that excites me because I feel like that's proactive prevention.
Mm.
And you and I have spoke about that before, being proactive to get people to decide not to do something or to proactively do something, to proactively be an advocate. And so when you talk about interactive advocacy, I love the idea of you're not just speaking to people who have been victimized, but people who have the opportunity to be advocates. And so I guess my question for you here is after your trauma, did you feel alone? And then when you got support, any kind of support in any kind of capacity, how did that impact you?
So my trauma was a very long journey. And my first experience with trauma was as a child. I experienced childhood trauma, childhood molestation. And so my entire childhood, I did not have an opportunity to share that story with anyone or talk to anyone about it. And as a result of that, I started to experience loss and then more trauma. And because it was years before I got any help or received any help or even felt safe enough to say out loud what had happened to me. Like I needed to be strong. I'm the eldest of 6 siblings. So I needed to be strong. I needed to take care of them. And I could never let anyone see my pain or my hurt. And a lot of that had to do with fear. Fear of if I was going to be believed, fear of what was going to happen to the person, fear of, what is my family going to think about me? And so as a result of that, I became very vulnerable. And and I was easy prey. It was easy for a predator to seek me out as a result of that. And then because at that time, I hadn't done the work and I hadn't been able to identify who those, what I call monsters were, um, I, I, I was in situations that I would have, if I would have had the tools that I needed, I wouldn't have been in. So it was a very, very long, hard journey to get the help, but finally to admit that I was a victim of trauma, and not just one incident, but multiple incidents. And so I had to dig deep. I had to get the help. I had to go seek professional counseling and literally scale it all the way back to the very beginning, because it's like, okay, you're focused solely on this thing, and that it played a series of events, because then it impacted my mental stability. I was suicidal at one point, and then I had to deal with being hospitalized. So many different things happened, but once I was able to say, I'm safe, I'm okay, these people can't hurt me, I can do the work. That's literally where the journey to healing began for me. And once I was able to trust myself with my emotions, trust myself with my feelings, and learn to forgive my younger self, for all of the things that happened because they were not within my control. um, I was able to slowly start to take steps forward. And then as I started sharing my story in smaller group sessions, just kind of talking to people, I saw that it had the ability to heal and help, but mostly help me.
That's everything that you just said is so powerful and impactful. I'll tell you when I was when I was going through victim advocate training, we had someone come speak to us about working at a shelter with children. And just hearing about children was overwhelming for me. So I can't even imagine going through what you went through. And you just said so many powerful and important things. Yesterday on my podcast, and on my podcast, people can catch the Cope Life podcast on my YouTube channel, or on wherever you listen to podcasts, but I spoke about parenting. And I didn't speak about trauma at all, but a couple of things that I mentioned was children, in order for children to feel confident, because we want our kids to feel confident and have a healthy love of themselves. And what I said was, they can't do that unless they feel safe and secure. And that's exactly what you hit on. But you weren't talking about safety from being judged about your grades. You weren't talking about the way people look at you. You were talking about real trauma. And one thing that you said was, um, first, I'm an emotional dude, so I got some pauses. I got some pauses, man. But one thing you said was, you didn't say anything that first time because you were concerned about what would happen to the perpetrator, which whew, that's a mouthful. I mean, so what are you saying? And these are rhetorical questions, right? But what are you saying? That you know this person, that you care about this person, that they're, to some degree, on some level, they're an important part of your life. And so as much as they harm you, you don't want harm to come to them. And so, like all children, we want the people that we care about to be okay. And so what you do is you find a way to hate yourself. You find a way to blame and judge yourself. And then how do you get over that? Well, you can't. You were the oldest of six. What were you gonna do, right? In your I don't know, 14,000 square foot house, go to the West Wing? Like that's not an option for most of us. And so and when you say that, and that's why, partly for me is just the focus on research and training for me, because I hear these stories, man. I'm so impacted by it. I think about some of the research that I did for my dissertation, and knowing that, over 80% of people who joined the military had at least one adverse childhood experience. And 45%, and this is from a study done in 2017, 45% have had 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. And when we say 4 or more, that means 4 or 7 or 11 or 13. It's not 4 or 5. And the tipping point, I've seen other research that says the tipping point that makes an individual more vulnerable and more likely to develop complex PTSD and other comorbid mental health disorders, the tipping point is 4, that 4th event. And so based on all of that data, it makes me want to ask you about your mindset and self-perception, self-worth, whatever you believed about yourself when you decided to join the military.
That's another great question.
Well, real quick, before you answer that, I'm just going to say that nothing is our business unless we decide to make it so.
Right. No, I thank you for that. No, I thank you for that. I thank you for that. So I will sum that answer up by saying that because of my trauma, for many years, I was a runner, right? Running was my escape, literally. I ran track. I ran away from home so I could run track. Like running was my escape. Like I would feel my feet hitting the ground, hitting the pavement. I could take all my anger and my aggression out on running, and I could just look and see, that there was hope ahead. So when I went into the military, I ran away into the military, so to speak. It was like it was my place of escaping. And I entered into the military on the cusp of trauma. And, so I just thought, no one knows me. I could be anyone that I wanted to be and just be the best person that I could be and do well in this environment. At least that's what I thought initially. And what helped me out for a long time was because I was such a great runner. I received so much accolades. And so because everyone saw me as this great runner, everyone was like, oh, we want her to be on our team. I enjoyed that until I couldn't run. I had a really nasty fall, and that started to that caused me to unravel a little bit, so to speak, because I couldn't put my aggression into that thing. So my mental stability at that time was really rocky, because who joins the military to escape trauma? I mean, when you're in a military environment, and I was in the army, you're trained to be soldiers, and you could potentially go to war. So how could potentially going to war be a better situation than what I was in? So there was definitely a lot of instability, a lot of again, fear. Um, and eventually that led me to thinking that my life was of no value. I always saw myself as an ugly person. I didn't like my voice. I always thought it was too deep. And all of those things ultimately led me to have to be seen on the psych ward, because it played a huge role in my stability and my mental state.
Wow. I just I'm so appreciative, so grateful for you to be vulnerable and to share. I mean, it's so powerful. I think about what you said about your feet hitting the ground, and you could feel the air, right? Just breathing harder, just being able to go hard. And I think about so many people who have experienced trauma. One of the debilitating factors is having no control whatsoever. And so when you're experiencing trauma, you have the accelerated heart rate, you have the breathing faster, you have the adrenaline, you have all of that, but you have no control. And so when you run, that's your way of, let me take back control, and let me be in charge of me. Yeah, my heart is racing, but it's because I said so. And when my feet hit the ground, feel it. I feel alive, because when I'm not on that level, I feel dead inside. And that's what a lot of people experience. I want to say, to comment on something else that you said, and this is for anyone who may be listening who has experienced childhood maltreatment or trauma and joined the military to get away. The truth is, a lot of people join the military to get away. And I've seen this in my research and interviews that I've done, where people join the military to get away. And one reason why people join, it's the slogans are powerful. Why would you join the Army or the Marines? To be Army strong. I need the Army to make a man out of me. I need the Army to toughen me up because I'm weak, because I'm a loser, because I'm soft. And you have all of these ideas, because at the age of 19 years old, when you say I'm weak, you're not envisioning 19-year-old Tanya as weak. You're envisioning the little girl. And so you're like, am I still weak like she was? How about how about instead of thinking about that, how about I go for a run? How about I get in some squats or some pull-ups? And the same thing with the Marines. It's the few, the proud, the Marines. It's escaping that childhood. And so many people have done that. And what so many have found was that the Army, all of the services, right? The Air Force, the Navy, the Coast Guard, all of the services can actually compound that trauma. They can make it worse, because a lot of times you don't know something's a trigger until it triggers you. You hear a certain word, someone gives you a certain the look that reminds you of something that you thought you forgot, and then you have the whole flashback. And so I think that, where you may have a negative perspective on some of your decisions or actions, I look at it like, I think it is courageous to choose to go and get that help. It is courageous. And understand that courage courage does not exist without fear.
Mm,
You are not, I mean, what can you do that has no fear? It takes no courage to tie your shoes. It takes no courage to brush your teeth. But you sit in front of a stranger and say, my mental health has deteriorated to the point that I need you to fix me, save me, bring me back is very courageous. And so, for anyone who's listening or watching this today or 10 years from now, whatever, it takes courage. And so, asking for help is a sign of strength. You sharing your story today and being vulnerable is a sign of strength. And it's something that I don't know if I could do, yet at the same time, I'm grateful that I have not had those experiences. And I'm grateful that you are able to use your voice to tell a story that so many people have had but are too afraid to share. So I'm just taking a moment just to honor you and just say thank you. I'm just, because we've had a lot, you and I have talked a lot.
yeah, yeah, we have. We
And
have.
we've never talked about this. And um I don't know, like I'm always available to talk, but when I speak to people about anything, you get the full me. That
Yeah.
I have previous episodes where I've had to pause and wipe a tear, like that's how I am.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
cry with you. I'm that dude. I'll cry with you, no shame. Um,
But Dr. G, I want to say one thing. Um, Someone very dear to my heart asked me one time, why are you why are you sharing these stories so vocally? And I've been talking about this stuff for over 20 years. But this is the first time that they really see me do it so publicly. So they asked me, why are you sharing all of this stuff? Like, aren't you healed now? Aren't you better? So why are you're doing all these amazing things? Why do you still have to talk about this stuff though? And I said, well, it's really simple. It's because I am on that journey of healing. And I will be the first one to admit that I tell everyone I'm still in the construction. But because I am on that journey and I am healing, I can talk about it. When I couldn't talk about it, that's when everyone was supposed to be worried and concerned. When I kept everything bottled up, when it was just, compiling more trauma and more fear and more self hate and all of those things that I didn't share, that was the time to worry. But because I stayed so quiet, no one saw that. My family used to say they saw me running and fighting a lot, but no one ever stopped to ask me why.
mm,
Why? And that played a huge impact on me. It was detrimental because as a young person, all you see is that everyone notices this change, but no one intervened. So now I feel compelled to ask questions. Are you okay? Are you all right? Do you need someone to talk to? If something doesn't look right, I'm going to share and I'm going to step in because I know what my personal experiences were, you know? So, thank you so much because I do agree fear will stop you from doing so many things as it has. But my new model with fear now is that I use fear just like I use my trauma. If I'm not afraid of something, then my dreams aren't big enough. If I'm not afraid of my dreams, they're not big enough. And so fear, if you channel it the right way, can also be positive. And I try to do that now. I try to make fear something positive and use it to arm me and to give me strength.
I love that so much. I love it so much. Real quick, I'm gonna say that one thing that I like to talk about is the mind body connection, and when you have certain strong emotions, it's it's felt throughout the body. And the reason I'm saying that is because hearing your story, like I feel it in my traps and shoulders, like I'm consciously having to relax because I'm feeling it so much. Like I'm like we you and I are just sitting down, but like my traps are getting tired because my whole body just feels it. Man, I
But
just
you know, that's what we tell everybody at IA. We tell folks, you know, if you come to one of IA shows, we're gonna make you laugh, we're gonna make you cry, but we're gonna do it in a safe, you know, space and a safe learning and training environment. And that's actually one of the things that I do love about what we do is that, you know, because we're talking about heavy topics, you know, when you think about sexual assault, suicide, mental health, those are some heavy topics. So we also introduce comedy into our performances to kind of lighten it up a little bit. You know, we poke fun at ourselves, we over exaggerate certain points. And we enjoy being able in those moments to laugh because laughter is also a part of healing. So, you know, I'm always doing something goofy. We've got little goofy dances that they'll do with, you know, that I'm doing behind the scenes, off camera. I love when my team catches me on B-roll because we have to laugh at ourselves, you know, when we've experienced some of these things and learn that it's okay. It's okay to poke fun. It's okay to understand that the weight of this stuff is heavy, but really and truthfully, you know, how we heal is through laughter and being creatives and writing and spoken word and singing and creating movies, all of those things, all of them help us on our journey. So we definitely love to laugh around IA.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so what I would like to do is pivot a little bit. And you say we love to laugh at IA. I kind of want to know just more about it. What do you have to offer? And also, in addition to what do you have to offer, I want to know a little bit about the character and the quality of people that are in this organization.
Oh my goodness gracious. There are no words for my IA family, including you, Dr. G. Um, I I am again so overwhelmingly humble with their graciousness, their level of professionalism, their dedication, from every facilitator to every script writer to editor to cinematography. I mean, my talent. We really are a family. We laugh together, we cry together, we eat together, and you know, we share so much. These are some powerful individuals, and even those entertainers or actors that have not experienced trauma, because they know that a lot of our stories are real. They safeguard them in the way that they deliver their performances. You know, they understand that this is someone's story, that this is Miss J's story, and they want to make sure that when they share this information with their audiences, the audiences connect, right? The level of impact is there. And you know, we've had commanders tell us that our presentation is bold, it's provocative, but it's impactful. And it really is, and they are outstanding. We have award-winning edutainers. One of our edutainers is an Emmy winner, and so these are not lightweights. These professionals have been doing this for a very long time and have the credentials to support them, as well as our facilitators. You know, they are amazing.
I love it because you know the thing is these people have careers outside of IA. Like this isn't like a full time job. They have other things going on in their lives, but what they're able to do really is connect with you. They have to believe in you and believe in the company. And then when they are on stage, they're able to connect with the audience in a way that the audience believes in them. And I think that's so powerful. And that's why you keep getting calls because we when I say we, I mean, you know, I'm a 20-year veteran, right? We've all had the SAPR training, and it's very important training, and it really provides information and data for people to understand the process so they can understand the resources that are available and who they can talk to, and what can they do and not do. So they need that. That's why it's required. That's why they go through it every year. But it's emotion, the emotional connection that leads to action. And that's what you bring. And I love it. And so, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to ask you about is, this is the Cope Life podcast, where we strive to build a community of people living a life of kindness, optimism, positivity, and empathy. And so I'm wondering if you can just kind of dig into how interactive advocacy embodies those attributes.
Oh, that's another great question. And thank you for asking me that. I think in order for you to do this business, genuinely do this business. And I said from the very beginning, this type of work is not for everybody. You mean you could be a great actor, but this type of work that we do is not for everyone, because the content, again, is very heavy, and it's consistent. You have to dig deep and really be a kind person, because not only do I get stopped after our show, so do our edutainers and our facilitators. After every show, people will come up to them and want to share their own personal stories with them. And you have to be a very kind individual to be able to listen to those stories, to share, to connect, to respect, and just, do this work. So that actually is, when we send out our collaborative partnership team member agreement, so to speak, kindness is one of the things that we ensure that all of our team have. So it's something that we strive to do every day. So we definitely believe that being kind and incorporating that into our daily attributes is a huge important thing that we do here at IA. So that's one of the ways that we deliver our kindness. Just be mindful of our audience, because we never know who's there, if it is a survivor or someone that hasn't come forward. I mean, just genuinely be kind.
I love that, because I think about, the character that you have to be involved in this work. Because the truth of the matter is, if you watch anyone long enough, you can see if they're being fake. You can see, okay, this guy's full of crap, whatever. She's faking, whatever, right? And it's like that for me, even in the movies, where you watch this great actor, and then on movie 12, you're like, oh, they do the same thing every movie. So yeah, you have to bring your authentic self to this kind of work, because you're doing so much more than just entertaining.
Absolutely.
And I think about the aspects of optimism and positivity. And so when I think of optimism, I think of finding the good in the bad. When times are tough, when times are bad, are you able to be grateful? Are you able to hold on to something of value? And when I think of positivity, I think of the idea that moving forward, I'll be okay. And so, and of course, empathy is really, I look at empathy as being able to connect with someone else's story, with empathy, without judgments, being able to walk in their shoes and see their perspective. And so I think about, if I was in the audience just watching and I experienced something similar to what is portrayed on the stage, I think it would definitely help me to be positive and optimistic.
Yeah, I personally, I am so optimistic and so hopeful that the work that we're doing will really be able to create cultural change. Like, I believe it. And I have to be optimistic, even as numbers of suicide are increasing or sexual assault are increasing. I have to be optimistic that, eventually we're going to see a time and a space where folks are not going to need the work that we do anymore. We're going to have to learn how to do something else. So I try to be optimistic and remain positive, even when things are slow. When our phones are not ringing off the hook. How can we create ways to connect to our audiences and to our community? People will tell you, I mean, if it was up to Ms. J, she would do this work for free, because I understand that it's so necessary. Why? Because we are full of so much empathy, because there is that one person in the audience who we have helped, who have been a victim of trauma, who are also thriving survivors and want to know how can they be a part of what we're doing as well. So I have to be full of optimism and just full of so much empathy, and just be grateful and so humble that we're able to do this work that we do every single day, with so much passion.
I love it. I love it. And you talk about connecting with the audience, and you talk about culture change. And culture change starts with the leadership. Culture change starts at the top. I remember one time when I was in a meeting, and there was an Air Force commander. And so the SAPR program, for those of you that aren't familiar, sexual assault prevention and response, the SAPR program was changing, right, to help people more. And there was a commander who said, now we're going to see an epidemic of false reports.
Mm.
And I thought, if that dude was my commander, would I ever come forward? And so culture change and leadership are so important. And what I want to ask you about is, if I was a commander, if I'm a leadership installation commander, right? Because it's not just about one squadron, it's not just about one battalion or platoon. We're talking about, we want the culture to change throughout the force. And as an installation commander, they can start right at their installation. So if I was an installation commander and I said to you, how does your organization, how does your company impact my culture? What will my people get out of this? What would you say?
I would say that the greatest takeaway is the impact of our training, the connections that we make with the audience. The takeaways are so great because of the connections, right? These are real world scenarios. And what we try to do is we try to put our audience in the seats of the responsive bystander, of the survivor, of the victim. And it gives them an opportunity organically, authentically, to feel connected to these stories. There's so many different things happening around them. And we try to convey, through some of our training and some of our exercises that we do in our training, the weight of that trauma and the impacts of them long term and short terms on the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen in the organization. They need to understand the weight of that trauma. And if they do, and they have bold open door policies, and they're really they really take ownership of these programs, that's how you slowly start to rebuild the trust. I ask commanders to please be in the room, not just the policies, but you actually in the room, present, engaged, and have conversation on uncomfortable situations. So I think it's really going to be up to these leaders, to really embrace, doing a lot more than just checking the box, but thinking outside the box, and doing bold, impactful training that kind of shakes things up a little bit, and kind of gets rid of some of the PowerPoint presentations alone. So I think that this is a great way to connect with commanders, and then they'll start to see those cultural shifts, because they will be less reporting. People will be compelled to stand, on the soapbox, so to speak, and to stand up and speak out when they see toxic behaviors happening around them. They're going to say, "Not my watch," or "Not my watch." Why? Because I remember how I felt when I was watching one of Interactive Advocacy's productions.
That's exactly it, right? That's exactly it. Culture change, commanders, leadership being present, and there's an advocacy part of it. The part of it where it's I remember how I felt. watching that performance. And the reason some people remember because it's just a great performance. It's a powerful performance, right? Like when I watched Rocky, I felt it, but I'd never been a professional boxer. But but then there are other people who they felt it because they have experienced it. And one thing I need commanders to know is that when you put your command team together, right? So you're the installation commander, say an army post, and you have the command sergeant major. And then on that installation, you have your battalion commanders, company commanders, you have other sergeant majors, you have first sergeants. You're not going to gather a leadership team on an installation, right? We can say E8s and up and O4s and up. You're not going to gather this team of 15, 20, 25 people without having victims of sexual assault on the leadership team. And no, maybe they didn't tell you about it because if you hired me to be the command sergeant major, one thing we're not going to talk about in that interview is my childhood trauma. That's not going to happen. I need to show you my strength and my leadership. But at the same time, it's also demonstrating to other leaders on the installation that you can be bold about preventing sexual assault. You can be a voice, you can be an advocate. Maybe the specialist, maybe the ensign, the corporal isn't going to come to you, general, and say, I was raped. But they know if they enter the process of getting help, that you have their back. Absolutely. And that's so important. That's so important. That's why I love what you do, and I love the leadership's buy-in. Because when we talk about what's happening on an installation, it could be anything, right? Infantry, artillery, intelligence, information warfare. We can't do our jobs. We can't complete the mission when somebody's out because they've been raped, when somebody's out because they're having to go to court. And then their friends around them, because it impacts the entire culture, the entire office when we're hurting inside. And so when we have a culture where we don't allow that and people are able to feel safe and secure and we reduce the numbers, it affects the mission. We get the job done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I just,
the other thing too, Dr. J, I'm sorry. The other thing too, whether you're a first sergeant, whether you're a sergeant major or even a commander, that's not where you started. So yes. That it's one of those things where you'll never forget, of course, if you've experienced trauma anywhere in your career, but when you reach those senior leader rank, that's not where you started. So you just have to remember that whether you experienced trauma and how you were able to deal with it, maybe your soldier or your airman or someone in your down trace, they may not be able to deal with it the same way that you were, right? So you got to think about that when you're also trying to rebuild trust, and sometimes again it's worth it to be present in the room and really allow your soldiers to understand that you do understand, even if your experience was different, but that you can be there and support them. And get them the help that they need, because sometimes that's all some individuals want is just support.
Yeah. I love you saying that, because when you say that, what I was thinking of is the leadership, the ones who have forgotten what it's like, and what connects them to their young soldiers and airmen's trauma is what they see on the stage. When I see what you're doing on stage, when I hear what's being said, and I see the embodiment of something that I experienced 15 years ago, then maybe I can make a proactive, conscious decision to talk to my young people differently. And that's the empathy piece. That's the empathy piece. And it's not just about were my troops sexually assaulted or not. It's, am I an empathetic leader? Mm-hmm. Am I open and available and authentic to my people? And you mentioned support. After someone experiences trauma, support is one of the most important factors in determining if they're going to develop PTSD or post-traumatic growth. You can be the factor, you can be the critical piece that moves a person towards growth. And so it's so important, it's so special and important what you do. So what I want to know is, because you know what, here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is the truth. If people don't reach out to you, they're missing out. And the truth is, they might have some special time, something going on in the near future, and you're already booked.
Yeah.
So what I want to know from you is kind of just an overview. It's up to you how much detail you give or don't, but what do you have coming up in the future? Who are, like, maybe who you're supporting, or maybe what kind of different performances are being put on? What's coming up for IA?
Well, I will share, like, literally right around the corner here in North Carolina. I'm really excited that you asked that. We are doing our second spoken word live event here in North Carolina. So please check out our social media platforms, our Instagram page, everything at Interactive Advocacy. But we're doing a spoken word event, a pre-Valentine's Day event. And I'm really excited about this because while there's so many people that, you know, have kind of hook, line, and sinker fallen for Cupid and Cupid's arrow, there are also many people that are not in healthy relationships, that are just escaping from toxic behavior, relationships. So this pre-Valentine's Day event that we're having is in honor of those individuals that are, you know, in love and celebrating healthy relationships, but also to celebrate those individuals that were courageous enough to leave toxic relationships, or if they're just individuals that are learning to love themselves. This event is for them. So we're really excited about being able to do that. And then, you know, we're just starting to fill up our calendar with training with military organizations. But, you know, if it's up to me, I say call. You know, whatever we can do to work individuals in, we absolutely will, because we're passionate about the work that we do. So just give us a call. You know, we'll try to find a way that we can collaborate with you all. There's so many different things that we can do. As you know, Dr. G, we are a full production company as well. So not only do we do productions on the stage, we can also do short films, documentaries, PSAs. So we're really excited about all of the different ways that we can connect with our audiences in an effort to, again, create cultural change, not just one organization at a time, but one community at a time.
I love it. I love it. And you know what I think about when you say all of those things, all the different means that you have available as a full production company, I think about that one person that just needs this, right? And it's not so much about, well, for some people, right? For some people, it's not about anything more than knowing that they're not alone.
Absolutely.
That's all it is. They can watch this whole production and they're still not going to report. They're still not going to work on a conviction or anything. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, I'm not the only one. It wasn't my fault and nothing's wrong with me. And so what I want to close with, I just want you, if you can give a message speaking directly to someone, a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman, who is struggling after being victimized through sexual violence. What is your message to that person who's struggling?
I'm gonna say what I share with my team all the time, and it's just real simple. Don't let trauma define who you are.
Yes.
And be unstoppable. And that's it. I mean, it's just that simple. Just don't let it define who you are. You are not your trauma.
That is so true. I love it. I felt that. I felt that because you are not your trauma. You are the same person, same height, same weight, same age, still loved by the same people, still worthy of love, still worthy of support, companionship, friendship, still worthy of happiness. And so when you say don't let your trauma define you, it's and that's what interactive advocacy does is you empower people to make the decision. I am deciding, I am choosing that my trauma doesn't define me. I'm not a victim. I'm a person who was victimized. Because if you were victimized and then you call yourself a victim, you accept that label, then when you begin to heal, you need to accept that label as well.
Mm-hmm.
I am a healer. I'm not a victim, I'm a healer. And so this has been very powerful. I mean, I know me, right? I have self-awareness. I know I was gonna feel it. I know me, and I'm so grateful for you being here. So grateful for your message and what you do. And one thing that I love in these helping professions is the fact that you have no idea, and you will never know how many people you have impacted. There was a young 19-year-old soldier who felt your last performance, and this individual has decided that they're going to stand up against sexual assault, and they make that lifelong decision. So it impacts their troops when they go from private first class to sergeant major or get commissioned, when they get married, when they have kids, when they deal with other parents, other supervisors. You cannot even measure the impact of interactive advocacy. And that makes me so proud to know you and to be a part of what you've decided to do. I appreciate you. I'd quantify it if I could. I really would. So on that note, do you have any last words before we close out?
Just thank you so much. I really do appreciate Dr. G, you allowing us to be here. And to the entire audience that's watching you, thank you so much. And I look forward to creating cultural change with all of you. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And to everyone, just remember to move forward with kindness, optimism, positivity, and empathy, and be the change that the world needs, including a voice for the voiceless and an advocate for change and an advocate against violence against women. Have a great day. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.